Welcome back to another episode of the Find Food Freedom podcast. I am very excited for today's episode, and I got this inspiration. I get inspiration in many different ways of what to talk about. A lot of times it comes from Instagram, but this one was from our team meeting we had this week. So every single Wednesday at 2 p.m., the Find Food Freedom team comes together on our Zoom and we all talk about clients, what programs we have going on, just all getting on the same page, anything we've seen in the media lately, all the good things. And Julie, who is our lead registered dietitian and certified intuitive eating counselor at Find Food Freedom, she also heads up our mastermind program, which has the one-on-one support and the group support. So there's 14 amazing humans in this group. And she was on the group call with them and was walking through, like, people were talking about what can we expect over the course of the next 6 months as we dive into an intuitive eating journey. And she brought up the stages of intuitive eating, which these are in the intuitive eating book. They're very easy to find. We actually have a really great blog post. If you search on Google, stages of intuitive eating, I believe our blog post is the first thing that comes up on Google. That's how many times it's been clicked and searched. So, and I will put that in the show notes with this episode as well. So, anyways, Julie was telling me how she went through the stages of intuitive eating with our mastermind clients and how well it went over, where these people were so excited to kind of be validated of what they can expect on their intuitive eating journey. And I want to talk about that too, because I know that the biggest fear holding people back from starting an intuitive eating journey is the fear of weight gain. And so I also think with that, because if your purpose of your life has been intentional weight loss for so long, and now you're entering this space where you're not using tangible numbers, you're not using calorie counts, meal plans, all these things, it's like, well, then what the fuck am I doing? Like, what can I expect? Because I'm so used to hopping on a scale, and that's how I felt validated, right? I'm so used to seeing this number or numbers or whatever. So that's where the stages of intuitive eating come into play, and they make the journey so much easier in the sense of knowing what to expect. So that's what we're talking about today. We are going to jump into all 5 stages. And before we do that, I want to share the Find Food Freedom win of the week. And so with the win of the week, this sounds like a game show. I don't know why I said win of the week. I wanted to share a Find Food Freedom win. And usually, and today I'm going to be doing that. I'm pulling it from the DMs, but it's funny. Although we get so many DMs and I screenshot them, I was like, oh, the other night I was like thinking about this. I was like, I could also share our clients' wins. Like, we have thousands of clients that we've worked with that have sent us wins. And that would be, I feel like, even a more of an inside scoop to show you so you know what it's like. We have hundreds of testimonials on our website where people are on camera sharing their intuitive eating journey. And I highly recommend checking that out. You can go on our website, findfoodfreedom.net, and click the testimonials page. And I can talk about intuitive eating all day long. And you're like, no shit, Sammy. It's what you do for a living. But I think seeing other people's stories is so impactful because it's their journey. Anyways, I'm going all over the place today. So let's read the Find Food Freedom win of the week. This is from Marcia. She sent this to me in a DM and she wrote, win, exclamation point, times like 5. Went on holiday to family who overeats as a lifestyle. I ate till I was full. I enjoyed the food, but I wasn't thrown into overeating. I was able to ask myself what I really wanted and skip the food that wasn't high on my list. I felt freedom to be able to truly enjoy what was offered rather than feel like I had to stuff myself on everything in sight like I would have in the past. Pure freedom. Thank you so much, Marcia, for sharing this. And these are the kind of messages we get. Again, like someone like Marcia, she was not a client of mine or anyone at Find Food Freedom on our team, but she follows our content. She listens to the podcast. She listens, on Instagram and all of these things. And I think that's so cool that, like, again, I've never met this person, but they sent this amazing win. So I like to share wins because I think they give us hope as humans who are looking to go on a food freedom journey. That can be you too. If you're someone who constantly feels out of control around food, you feel like you always eat to a place of physical unpleasantness, and you want to be able to listen to your hunger cues and respect your fullness cues, I would encourage you to take that step and go on an intuitive eating journey. And what a great bridge, because today we're going to talk about the stages of intuitive eating. So I dusted off the intuitive eating book written by Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch, who are two incredible registered dietitians. And I pulled out the stages in addition to our blog where we kind of break these down. But I love in the book, they use this analogy for the stages. And your girl loves analogies. When I'm teaching, when I'm learning something, like I need an analogy or I can't understand it. I'm a visual learner. So what I love about the analogy they use for the stages is how it really helps make it concrete and make it make sense. So they talk about how with the stages of intuitive eating, you can think of it like a map for a hiking trail. So let's say that you and I are going on a hike, right? And we want to know, like, what can we expect on this hike? What is it going to be like? Like, how long is it? What is the terrain like, right? Like, what can we expect this hike to look like? And it makes sense because we're planning and we're prepping for the day. And so we want to know. So that's what these stages, there's 5 stages, 5 defined stages that you can expect to get from these stages is understanding what your intuitive eating journey can look like, what you can expect to go through, what you can expect to hit as a roadblock or an obstacle, potentially, just a vision. Now, what I love with their analogy that they say in the book is how, okay, great, right? It's great to be able to see that map if you and I want to go hiking and we want to understand how long is the trail, what to expect. But even if we have a map, the map's not going to tell us what's the weather like. What if a boulder moved on the trail and now we have to scale a boulder? What if there's wildlife on the trail that comes running after us, right? What if we experience sweet, fresh fruit on a trail that the map didn't tell us about, right? Like there's all of these additional things that can happen on a hike that you can't get from a map, right? Like we can have the visual, we can have the general outline of the hike, but we can't know every little nook and cranny of the hike from looking at a map and what's going to happen that day, right? Versus that week, that year, depending on when we go on the hike. And so same thing happens with our intuitive eating journey. We can have these stages to serve as a map, to serve as a guide, to serve as expectations, but the map isn't going to tell us everything. And the map, aka the stages, can't be a crystal ball of what's going to happen in our life and tell us all of the obstacles and the struggles and the things that are going to happen that are going to make our intuitive eating journey maybe more challenging than someone else. Also, the map doesn't know how many years we've been dieting for, how many years we've been calorie counting, macro counting, restricting ourselves, binging. I mean, you name it. The map doesn't know all of that. So I say this because I think sometimes when we come from dieting where it's super black and white and it's on or off and you follow the rules or you don't follow the rules, you can get to these stages of intuitive eating. You're like, okay, this is the magic answer. Like, I just needed to go and like, I got it. And it's like, no, 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 no. These are great. These are great. It's a great outline, but it's not going to tell you everything. And so I want to just set up expectations for that of what these stages are for you. All right. So let me run through. I'm going to just say like the titles of the stages, and then we're going to break them down. And then by listening on today's episode, you can also try to determine what stage are you in, right? So stage 1, readiness, hitting rock bottom. Stage 2, exploration, right? Conscious learning and pursuit of pleasure. Stage 3, crystallization. Stage 4, the intuitive eater awakens. And stage 5, the final stage, treasure the pleasure. Now, I also want to make this very clear that the stages of intuitive eating are not this linear journey where you're just going to say stage 1 complete and you're never going to go back to stage 1. Like, that's not how it works. Or like, oh, I'm done with stage 2, never going back to stage 1. I'm in stage 3. Like, no, you could be presenting some of these symptoms, let's say, of stages 1 and 2. And then maybe you feel like you're in stage 3 and then some type of life event happens and we go back to stage 2. So this is not about like checking a linear box and moving forward. This is about being a neutral observer and saying, okay, where am I right now? And knowing that it's okay no matter where I end up and no matter where I go. Okay, so stage 1, we call it diet rock bottom. It's the readiness to change. It is the stage where you say, I can't diet anymore. I'm so sick of dieting. I've dieted for 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. I am done. It doesn't work for me. I've ended up heavier. It hasn't gotten me what it's promised me, the smaller body, the love, the respect, the acceptance. I don't trust myself. I hate my body. I have a terrible relationship with food. Fuck it. I'm done. I know I can't diet anymore, but I don't know where to go from here because food is the enemy. My body is the enemy. I can't do this anymore. That is stage 1, if I had to describe it in a very general sense. Some of the things that you can expect. And this is where when we start to work with a client, they're usually in stage 1. They have this awareness that dieting doesn't work. It has harmed them, but they feel really scared because it's like dieting has been my purpose and my mission for my entire life. So like, who am I? What am I without dieting? So again, these would be some symptoms or some signs that you are in stage 1 of intuitive eating. You're aware that dieting has led to failure. You are tired of giving like your entire value and self-worth to a number that you see on the scale, or if you're a good or bad person based on what you ate that day. You've completely lost touch with your biological hunger. You do not trust yourself around food or knowing when or when not to eat. You've forgotten what it's like to eat what you want instead of what you air quotes should eat. Food is absolutely the enemy. You tend to over consume these foods that are air quotes forbidden or not allowed. Once you allow yourself to eat them, you eat a ton of them to a place of physical unpleasantness. You have very negative body image and view of self and self-esteem. And with all of that being said, you have this awareness that I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm scared shitless, but I want to be in touch with my body and I want to trust myself. So if you're someone who's like, holy shit, that's me, amazing. You're already in stage 1 and you didn't even know. I think sometimes people think they're in stage 1 when they stop dieting, right? And when they just don't diet anymore. And they're like, okay, I'm doing intuitive eating, but it's air quotes not working. This is where I would encourage people, just because you walk away from dieting, which is amazing, by the way, huge thing to celebrate. But just because we walk away from dieting doesn't mean that we're, air quotes, doing intuitive eating. Intuitive eating is an evidence-based self-care framework with 10 defined principles. And when our team is supporting people with intuitive eating, we are like actually working through coping mechanisms, counseling mechanisms, unpacking belief systems. We're doing a lot of things. We're not just not dieting, although that is a huge part of it. That's just like a teensy piece of the whole puzzle. All right, let's get to stage 2. Exploration, conscious learning, and pursuit of pleasure. This is where the exploration and the discovery starts. This is where it can feel really exciting and really scary, because you have to have unconditional permission to eat to be an intuitive eater. And so this is stage 2, is where we start to practice that. And a lot of fear can come up of like, whoa. If I have unconditional permission to eat, I'm never going to stop eating. And I promise you that's not the case. This is where we learn to really honor our hunger. We tap back into our hunger cues. We learn what it feels like to be hungry, because every single person is different. And if you're like, wait, I don't know what it's like to feel hungry, I want you to pretend that you're talking to somebody and you had to explain to them, how do you physically experience hunger? Like, they've never felt it before. They don't know what it is. They're a robot, right? How do you experience hunger? This is going to be so different for everyone. And we could do a whole podcast just on that. This is where you learn to get rid of guilt-induced eating and discover satisfaction. So some people, when they come from years of dieting, we talked about in stage 1, you eat a forbidden food, let's say a donut, and you're, typically in dieting, you would never allow that. And so then you enter this space now, you're like, well, fuck it. I'm just going to eat 17 donuts because I already messed up, or I'm a bad person. So here is where we're starting to get rid of that. And we recognize, like, I'm allowed to eat a donut if I want a donut. We're practicing removing guilt with food and recognizing that it doesn't change our character or worth as a human being, and starting to give ourselves unconditional permission to eat that we probably haven't had for a really long time, if we've dieted for a really long time. This is where it will be hard to respect our fullness at this stage. Like, this is where people, and we just put out a piece of content on this the other day, I think it was yesterday, where we were talking about how the celebratory binge phase, or the honeymoon phase of intuitive eating, that's what we're talking about right now, where you're getting access and permission to all of these foods that you haven't been allowed to eat for a really, really, really long time. You're going to eat more of those foods. And there's going to be this part of you that's like, why can't I stop eating these? Like, I am physically full. This is uncomfortable. Like, I want to stop. But you haven't been allowed to eat these in a really long time. So we have to trust our body, our brain has to trust, oh, I'm not going to be restricted of these again. I can continue to consume these, and I can have them today, tomorrow, next Tuesday, next month, 3 months from now, 5 Saturdays from now, 5 Mondays from now, whenever I want. And the more that you build that trust with yourself, that's when eventually we will be able to honor our fullness cues. But it's really, really hard to honor your fullness cues and to push away food if you feel physically full, because your body still thinks, oh, she's trying to restrict me. And it takes a really long time. Like, if we've been dieting for 20 plus years, you might be in the honeymoon phase for months or years. I can't tell you how many people think like, oh, it's just going to be a week. No, I've had clients go through years of this. And I promise you, peace does come, but it takes time to reprogram. Like I said, you're going to find in this stage 2, you are eating more of those foods that diet culture calls crap or junk, heavy air quotes. But in intuitive eating, we call them fun foods, play foods. Like you're going to find yourself eating more of those. What else? Making sure I don't miss anything here. This is where you're rebuilding positive food experiences too. So although I've talked a lot about like the fear in this stage of I'm never going to be able to stop or I'm wanting more of these foods, in this stage, you're allowing yourself to eat the food, right? Like you're making pleasurable food experiences. You're going out to your favorite, gourmet donut shop and getting the food that you've never been allowed to eat the past 15 years. So there's a lot of positives that come with stage 2 as well. All right, stage 3. This is the crystallization. This is the awakening of the true intuitive eater that's been buried by dieting. So you've started to really awake, like at this point, you've started to really practice that unconditional permission to eat. You're starting to really believe and trust yourself again that you are allowed to eat food and it doesn't make you a bad person. And your thoughts about food, you start to notice, are no longer obsessive. Like it's not constantly like, what should I be eating? What can I eat? Why am I not eating? Like that starts to quiet. And and it might not even be like this profound change, but you just say like, huh, I'm not thinking about food all day. This is weird. Like, this is great, but I'm not used to it. But you start to notice that. You're no longer having to feel like you're like hyper conscious about everything you're eating. I do get that comment a lot from people in the beginning of their intuitive eating journey. Like, am I always going to have to be thinking about what I'm eating and what I want and what I don't want and what's satisfying? And I think that in the beginning, it does take more awareness, but as you continue on, a huge sign, which is what I just said, is like, oh, there's not the obsession, or we don't need to be as hyper aware because we're adequately fueling our body and we're not focusing on food all the time now. So you may have needed that more awareness in the beginning, but you might find that that's starting to fade. Your food choices and responses to your biological signals are starting to be more intuitive. So you're able to feel a sensation in your body and react to it instead of like if you felt hunger before, maybe you felt hangry or anxious or irritable and you would turn to something else. Now you're able to say, oh, I think I'm hungry. I'm going to go eat. Boom, done. Carry on living your life and the rest of your day. So you're able to respond to these compensatory responses of hunger. It's easier to take time during a meal and gauge how you're feeling. Again, in the beginning, I think there's so much like, am I doing this right? Am I failing? Am I passing? Because in the beginning of your intuitive eating journey, you're closer to diet culture, right? Like you're just walking away from the rules. So now we come to intuitive eating where it's like, there are no rules. You're not doing it right or wrong. Every eating experience is an opportunity to learn about yourself. And so by stage 3, you're able to assess how you're feeling a lot easier in your body and trust that feedback that you're getting. You still may be choosing some of the fear foods or the forbidden foods, because those will always be a part of our lives, but you will find that you don't need as much of them to satisfy you. And this is where we have to trust the intuitive eating process, because in stage 2, remember how I said, you're still eating past that point of physical pleasantness. Like that's really common because we're learning to have unconditional permission to eat. By stage 3, you start to be like, oh, maybe I don't need 5 donuts. Like, can I have them? Abso-freaking-lutely. You can have 5 donuts whenever the fuck you want, and that's fine. But maybe you start to notice, I'm just using donuts as an example over and over today, but maybe you say like, you know what? today I could probably eat one donut and be very satisfied, and it's very delicious. And you're able to tie that all together. You'll notice with stage 3 that you're going to start to have less of a pull for intentional weight loss. So I think there's a big misconception that to be an intuitive eater, you are not allowed to desire weight loss. We live in a society where intentional weight loss is so thrown in our face, right? If we've dieted, that means we were chasing a smaller body for years and years and years and years. So when you go on an intuitive eating journey, I would be concerned, not concerned, but like it would be weird to me if someone came to us and was like, oh, the purpose of intuitive eating is non intentional weight loss. Cool. I just spent 20 years doing it, but now I don't care at all. Like that doesn't happen. It takes time to be able to walk away from that. Like if that has been your mission and your purpose and your drive for 20 years, it's going to take time to not desire that so deeply. And so by stage 3 of intuitive eating, you start to find that intentional weight loss doesn't consume your every thought, your every desire. Like it's not your worth. Like it is, might it thoughts come in fleeting? Yes. Like I don't think that is a bad thing. I think it's normalizing that where it's like, oh, it would be, I wish I lost weight. Okay. I feel this thought coming into my head. Okay. I'm just going to let it go and move on. And so it's like, you're going to notice that this urgency to have a smaller body and to lose weight, it's going to, that obsession is going to start to drop. And you're in this stage 2, you're going to start to respect your body and understand that being whatever size you are is a part of this journey. And this is where set point weight comes into play. If you are interested on set point weight or set point theory and understanding how weight works with our genetics, you can go to a previous episode of the Find Food Freedom podcast where it says, I think it's called What is My Set Point Weight or How to Find My Set Point Weight. It's just a few episodes back. And that's a great episode that really breaks down all of the science and everything behind that as well. So now let's get to stage 4. This is when the intuitive eater really awakens. You consistently show up for yourself and choose what you want to eat when you're hungry because you know that you can have whatever you want whenever you want it. You also in this stage are able to tap into your fullness cues more because you know that once you're full and satisfied, that you can go back to food whenever you want it. That idea of restriction and not being allowed to eat is so far gone that you're able to really listen to hunger and fullness cues. This is the stage of intuitive eating where, every client that I have ever worked with, we get to this point where it might look something like this. They'll come to session and say, Sammy, I'm worried that I'm dieting again. And I'll say, tell me more. Like, what do you mean? You're doing great. Like, give me an example. And they're like, I went out to eat and I wanted I don't know, I'm going to make, again, random example. I wanted a salad with avocado, grilled chicken, a side of fresh fruit. I think I'm dieting again. And I said, and then this is how I'll respond. I'll just give you like a client I'm thinking of. And I'll say, okay, what was your intention behind choosing that salad with grilled chicken and the side of fruit or, whatever. And they'll say, well, that's what I wanted. And I'll say, doesn't sound like a diet to me. When we choose the foods that we want to eat, that's eating, right? Now, back in diet culture, there may be a time where you ordered a salad with grilled chicken and a side of fruit because that was all that you thought that you were allowed to eat, and you were a bad person if you ordered the burger or the French fries or whatever it was. And so in stage 4 of intuitive eating, you start to notice that all of the food choices that you're making are for the majority like very well intended. It's because it's what you wanted. It's because it's what sounded good. It's because you thought that this was going to make you feel the most pleasant in your body. You're going to start to notice too that like chocolate and a peach, for example, both carbohydrate rich foods, right? Both have sugar. And you see them as like, do I want chocolate right now or do I want a peach? And they're both so neutral. Like all morality has been lost associated to food at this point. Like the thought of even demonizing chocolate or something that you love, it's like, oh, I don't do that anymore. Like all food is neutral to me. At this point in your intuitive eating journey, you're not angry with your body anymore. You're not at war with your body anymore. You're settling in and recognizing that your body is your home and that you want to take care of it physically, mentally, and emotionally, and that your body is on your side. So at this point, you're really accepting body diversity, not only for yourself, but for all humans, and really recognizing this. And it's a really, really beautiful part of the journey, because I think a lot of people think that has to happen right away. And for some it does. Again, everybody's journey looks different, but this is where we really start to see that connection with self and body. All right, so now we are on to the 5th and final stage. And remember, like I said at the beginning of this episode, this does not mean that this is like a linear step through each stage with intuitive eating. These are just general map, right? It's a general map of our hike. It's not going to tell us the terrain, the wildlife, the temperature, but it's a general map. Okay, so stage 5, you will trust your body's intuitive abilities at this point. There's like, if I ask you, do you trust yourself? There's no hesitation. You say yes. Like, it's like absolutely, I trust my body. I know when I'm hungry. I know when I'm full. That doesn't mean that I always listen to those cues. And that doesn't make us a bad person if we don't listen. But I know when I'm hungry. I know when I'm full. I trust full body, mind, soul that I know my cues. That is stage 5 of intuitive eating. There's zero guilt with food. There's zero guilt with quantities of food. I'm going to use this story as an example. I'm a human being. Hi. I consume food to a point of physical unpleasantness sometimes. I'm a registered dietitian. I'm also a certified intuitive eating counselor and a certified personal trainer. And still, for the rest of my life, there will be times that I eat food to a place of feeling unpleasant. That's a part of being a human. So when you're a stage 5 intuitive eater, you get to a point where no matter how many times I consume, like I'll use this example. We were out to eat. The food was so fucking delicious. And I was like, I am going to keep going. Do I know that I'm full? Yes, I'm very aware of it. But this food is so fucking delicious and my mouth wants more of it. I'm fully aware of what's going to happen if I consume too much food, and then I'm probably going to feel discomfort. And so be it. And did I experience some unpleasantness? Yes, I'm a human. And I did not couple the physical unpleasantness with emotional unpleasantness. The old version of Sam in diet culture would say, you're such a bad person. You're so disgusting. Why are you doing this? You don't deserve food tomorrow. You're not allowed to eat. And it would like spiral. Now, if I eat past a physical point of pleasantness, I'm aware of it. I say, okay, that's part of being a human. I say this feeling will pass, and boom, move on and know that like I'm going to be okay and it doesn't make me a bad person. And these are examples of what happens when you become that stage 5 intuitive eater. I find that in stage 5, we also start to really address the relationship with movement. You're going to notice that the burden of exercise is removed. You're not moving your body because you have to, or punishment or calorie burn. You're moving your body because you simply enjoy it. You find movements that you enjoy. What you enjoy is going to be different than what I enjoy, and you don't care that other people have different preferences than you. You feel empowered and protected from outside sources putting their thoughts on food, diet, bodies. Like when you're at stage 5, you're not getting triggered as much. Are you going to get triggered? Sure, we all are. We're human. But if someone says, "Oh my God, why are you eating that?" It's not going to send you on this like huge roller coaster of, "Oh my God, why am I eating this? Am I disgusting? Like, I'm such a bad person." No, it's like, fuck off. Like, my plate, my business. Whatever thoughts you have about food, keep them to yourself. And you'll recognize that, like, whatever anybody says about your food choices and your body is a direct reflection of their relationship with food and body, has nothing to do with you. So you're very empowered, very confident in your choices around food and body in stage 5. And at this point, you're free of dieting. Like, if someone offers you, "Do you want to be a part of this diet challenge?" or, whatever, like, you just laugh and you're like, "Holy shit, I will never go back to dieting." Like, the thought, whereas maybe in stages 2, you're like, "Oh God, like, maybe I need to go on a diet again. Like, things are getting a little crazy." Like, no, like, you're like, "Oh my gosh, dieting is never coming back in the picture." And it's laughable to you when you see people dieting at this point in your journey. So those are the 5 stages of intuitive eating. I hope that you enjoyed this episode because it can really, really, really give you confidence on your intuitive eating journey, because there's so much fear that comes with this journey. If you've come from dieting where you've been chasing intentional weight loss, you've been chasing measures, numbers, calorie counts, pounds, and now you're coming over to this space where you're like, "What am I doing?" So 1, the stages of intuitive eating can be very helpful. 2, working with a professional who can support you on this. So many people say in the beginning of their intuitive eating journey, "It doesn't work for me." And again, I find that they're not getting professional support. You're not supposed to know how to do this. Even if you've read the intuitive eating book, which I love so much, just because we read one book doesn't mean we're supposed to know how to do it, implement it all. Let's use me as an example. I hate math. I hate accounting. I hate numbers. I could read a book called Accounting 101. Am I going to be an expert in accounting? Fuck no. Am I going to be good at it? Probably not, because I couldn't even probably get through the book if I wanted to. So just like give yourself grace that you're not supposed to know how to do everything, and find support for you. There are thousands of certified intuitive eating counselors all over the globe now, which is so cool. There's an entire directory on intuitiveeating.org where you can find all of the certified intuitive eating counselors. And guess what? 3 of them are at Find Food Freedom. We are a team of certified intuitive eating counselors, registered dietitians. So if you listen to today's episode and you're like, "I really think I could use this support with my intuitive eating journey," I want to really encourage you to head over to findfoodfreedomresources.com. That is findfoodfreedomresources.com. And we have an array of support services. We have free master classes. We have a monthly membership that is only $27 per month. You heard that right. $27 a month. That is the cost of 2 to 3 Starbucks drinks. It has 2 check-in calls, a live masterclass, a private community, a membership library of over 60 plus previously recorded masterclasses on every topic you could ever need support on, including the truth behind weight and health, how to build a better body image, how to navigate diet culture entrenched loved ones that are fat phobic, all of the things. So if you were like, "Oh my gosh, I need support," please head over to findfoodfreedomresources.com. We have coaching, we have everything and anything you could ever need. So take what serves you, leave the rest behind. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please rate, review, subscribe, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We would be so beyond grateful if you could do that. The more you rate, review, subscribe, the more people hear this message, the more people that hear this message, the more that diet culture burns to the fucking ground. So I just thank you so much for being here. It is such a joy to connect with you each week, and we will see you next week.